Okay, so here there is distilled water in a baking sheet. I did it for 1 minute, but I actually started the 1 minute and then dropped the paper in, only because we are doing a very small picture here. This is going to be either a card or just something that you can do where you can cut out what you paint. So the timer's gone off, and I have put this on a board that I made, which is in the previous video, how I made it and what I made it from. That is an old cotton t-shirt. As you can see, I am using a plastic something or another from Home Depot. You can get it in the painting section. And I'm stretching the paper, and with the t-shirt, I am pulling off the extra water that is coming out from under the paper. And I'm trying not to press too hard because you can pull up pieces of the paper and it might be too rough then. And since this is the rough edged cold pressed paper, you want to just be careful. I use gloves when I stretch because my hands have oils and things like that on it, and I'm always concerned about, am I getting anything on there? Am I messing it up? I want my paper to be nice and clean when I get ready to do the watercolor or the gouache on it. As you can see, I am stretching from the middle out to the edges. And I'm removing any excess water from the edges of the paper without actually touching the paper with the t-shirt, because you want some water to be on the watercolor paper. Otherwise, you lose its ability to stretch on its own, and you're going to stretch it so that when you go back and you use water with your watercolor or your gouache paints, that you already have stretched paper there. Now, I am very carefully stapling 2 corners in a very small section, because once you're done with it, if you want to use the whole paper, you want to be able to just snip those off very carefully. So as you can see, I'm pulling the paper nice and taut, and that is really important for any watercolor paintings or any water-based painting of any kind. So I'm taking my first piece of tape, and this is painter's tape. And I prefer this type of tape for the paper edges only. And watch carefully for how I'm using the directions. Now, because I like to tape off about a 1/2 inch borders, I am now taking the ruler, and apparently I didn't have a pin nearby, and I'm marking on my board where a 1/2 inch is for each section of the paper so that the tape can go on. Now it's important to note that going from the middle out to the edges, as you can see from that one taped piece, I'm going to get ready to tape the rest of the piece of paper. And since I've already sectioned off where the tape needs to go, it just makes things simpler. So you always start from one edge and move out from there. And that's to keep your paper nice and taut, and so that as it dries, any shrinkage that you might have is already taken care of by A, the staples, and then B, reinforced by your tape. And I'm moving from the section that's taped over to the exposed section. Now I am about to secure the tape to a little bit of the paper, with the stapler. And here I have added just extra staples to the tape, but not the paper, because I would like for everything to sit there nice and tight. Now you will notice once you've got your paper taped down that some of the edges of the tape will buckle a little, just a little, and I'm pointing to that, against the paper, but that's okay, because you can go back as it is drying or as it is dried, and you can stick it back down. And then I'm just double checking my measurements from here to make sure that everything is the same around each edge, because once we take the tape off in the finished painting, I'm going to cut the sections, the staple sections. I'm going to cut them off. And I want to thank you for joining me.